Coming up, a tribal nation has donated $9 million to support the California Indian Nations College. Toxic pollutants endanger subsistence in Alaska, and families are on the road again this summer. I am Aaliyah Chavez. Join us for those interviews, plus headlines from the ICT Newscast.
Arizona PBS is proud to support Indian Country Today. For 6 decades, we've provided television programs and now digital content. But we go beyond that, sending outreach teams across Arizona, offering workshops in language and literacy, family engagement and community outreach, and supporting tribal communities with early learning and school readiness resources. Join us at azpbs.org.
This is the ICT Newscast with Aaliyah Chavez.
Mccarro, thank you for joining us. We start at the White House, where a Cherokee citizen has been awarded the highest military honor in the United States. On Tuesday, President Joe Biden honored Army Specialist Dwight W. Birdwell with a Medal of Honor. Birdwell now adds his name to the list of over 3,000 others who have received this distinction.
A member of the Cherokee Nation, Birdwell credits the Cherokee veterans who came before him and encouraged him to serve when he called. And I might note, Native American communities, a larger percentage, serve in the United States Armed Forces at a higher percentage rate than any other cohort in America.
Biden outlined Birdwell's actions in Vietnam, saying he helped drive back as many as 1,000 enemy troops in 1968. 3 others were also given Medals of Honor at Tuesday's ceremony. While chemical pollutants have been found within the traditional subsistence foods of indigenous communities. According to environmental science and pollution research, marine animals hunted by Yupik residents of St. Lawrence Island were found to have varying levels of manufactured chemicals. This was found through samples donated by hunters, researchers, and residents. The chemicals found are some of the same that are seen in fire retardants. The study said contaminants can be carried to the far north by changes in the atmosphere, and because of climate change, they can persist for up to decades. And later in our newscast, we'll speak to an environmental advocate about this issue. The first Native American treasurer is laying out her economic agenda. Mohegan Chief Lynn Malerba says she comes from leaders who instilled in her the need to keep her nation healthy. President Biden recently appointed her to be the nation's treasurer. Her name will soon appear on all U.S. currency. She says she hopes to sign either Chief Lynn Malerba or Chief Many Hearts Lynn Malerba. She says she wants tribal nations to have a seat at the table for policies that affect them.
With the trust and treaty obligations that the United States has towards tribes, it's important that our voices be heard and that we are not just consulted about policies, but that we get to the point of agreement around how policies are best designed and implemented so that tribes have an equal seat at the table.
She will also oversee the new Office of Tribal and Native Affairs at the Treasury Department. 17 Indigenous high school and college students took to Princeton University and then to Capitol Hill in June. They are advocating for issues most important to them. It's time for the U.S. government to take responsibility for its role in federally run boarding schools. That was the message this group of young Pueblo people took to Washington, D.C. in June. The group traveled to meet with members of Congress as part of the Summer Policy Academy 2. The program is put together by the Leadership Institute at the Santa Fe Indian School. But in order to get to these high-profile meetings, it took a lot of work.
My group, we focused on the protection of cultural landmarks such as Chaco Canyon.
Lauren Vigil was one of 17 participants. Her cohort studied at Princeton University's School of Public and International Affairs for almost a week. The young people here learned about the decades of federal policy that have impacted Indigenous people, including the assimilation, termination, and self-determination eras. They also learned about modern-day issues and worked with Indigenous experts to identify a project area. They researched and created presentations, even writing a policy paper. Lauren and her group's idea was to create a curriculum for students and policymakers to learn about the sacred site Chaco Canyon. This curriculum, Lauren said, is important for others to understand why this site needs to be protected from oil and gas leasing. She and her group took that message directly to New Mexico's senior Senator Martin Heinrich.
He was in a full agreement to the curriculum, not only at the state level, but at the federal level. And a couple of our other asks were to continue the protection of Chaco Canyon, not only for the 20-year federal process, but for the administration, which is permanently protecting Chaco Canyon.
Other groups focused on housing initiatives and motherhood programs for young Indigenous people. Preston Sanchez is an attorney in New Mexico. He said his group was clear about what they wanted to address: boarding schools.
If you think about it, these young people put together a simple message. If you do harm, if you make a mistake and you do harm to someone, what do your elders teach you? What do you learn as a youngster? You make an apology first.
And at the same time, there was another Pueblo leader in Washington, D.C. invested in this topic. The cohort met with Secretary Deb Haaland, and their work was acknowledged before the U.S. Senate Committee on Indian Affairs.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to enter a letter of the students into the record that recommends Congress introduce legislation to formally apologize for generational harms resulting from the federal Indian boarding schools and policies.
The group even traveled to the White House to meet with Indigenous staffers.
For me, I'm someone who's learning from them as much as they're learning from me. And I get to witness their strengths, the things that they bring to the classroom or to the Princeton University institution.
In Albuquerque, New Mexico, Aaliyah Chavez, ICT News. The Summer Policy Academy has announced it has signed a new agreement with Princeton University to continue the program for the next 5 years. And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. When we come back, we learn about new initiatives for higher education in California. Stay with us. The California Indian Nations College is aiming to become the first standalone, fully accredited tribal college California has had in decades, and it just received a major financial boost. In May, the 29 Palms Band of Mission Indians announced it has committed more than $9 million to support this goal. Daryl Mike is the chairman of the tribe, and he joins us now. Chairman, hello to you.
Hello, good morning.
So tell us about the California Indian Nations College and how your donation will essentially help it reach its goal.
Yes, well, this vision and this dream actually started, I want to say at least 20 years ago. My aunt had this vision of putting a college here in California. And so that started off the, long process of getting people in place and whatnot. And finally, it was here 3 years ago. We decided to take it on and make a donation here and make a donation there with the hopes of other tribes helping and donating as well. And it was a struggle, like with everything, it's a struggle when you start something new and introduce something and people are, is it going to make it? Is it not going to make it? But finally the tribe took on and tribe wholeheartedly believes in higher education for us native tribes, and it's hard for tribal kids to assimilate to I say like a UCR or one of those bigger universities, because coming off the res, they don't know how to commingle or mingle with people that are not essentially their culture, So we understand that, and it was a good move on the tribe to provide that higher learning for tribal kids.
Maybe talk about some of the success stories that have come from the California Indian Nation College so far. I mean, there's a number of classes and programs that it offers.
Yeah, on the classes and programs, I sat on it for a little bit being president to start kicking off, but my aunt spearheaded that. But there's classes, I believe, from cultural classes, native classes from different tribes. I know Chairman Gruby was on there from Agua Caliente, local support. And actually, I don't know if there's history class, and I don't know if there's a science class. I'm not really in tune with that. But all I know is that state of California, James Ramos, helped push and got another $5 million for the school. So I was made aware of this about maybe a week ago. So it's going through the hoops and bounds first. So it's not in, in essence, quote, ready to go. So I guess it has to pass through the legislators and legislative thing, and then I finally get approved. But hopefully, let's keep our fingers crossed, and hopefully it will.
For your tribal nation to make a donation of $9 million, I imagine that's it's a lot of money, I should say. Maybe talk about what kinds of economic development projects your tribe has in order to make a donation like this.
Well, basically, right now I was just off of all gaming from the tribe that we've had accruing. So the funds from that, but all our other projects that we're having, like gas stations, a hotel we're going to build, a cultural center, like an tribal cultural center from all the artifacts from Joshua Tree that they have collected, RV parks that we're doing in the high desert. So gas stations as well. But all that is to help fund programs like these. And whatever else the tribal council wants to do and achieve.
For the California Indian Nations College, Native students and also non-Native students can attend. Can you maybe talk about the importance of having, a tribal college and university, although it's not quite yet one? Can you talk about the importance of having that in your region?
For tribal kids and non-tribal kids, it's growing. Yeah, it's getting out there, and it's introducing one to each other. One's learning from another. The ones that are non-tribal, from what I've witnessed, is it's a good thing. They're learning from each other.
Chairman, I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but I'm really curious if you can talk about what other kinds of initiatives your tribe is working on right now, or any kinds of updates that you want to share with us.
The initiatives of sports betting, that's like a big thing. Sports betting is kind of like it's a frontier. It's kind of like gaming. Nobody knows what's going to go on with that. Those initiatives, we're trying to say no on sports betting here, because it takes away from the brick and mortar tribes like ours. So you got bigger companies coming here and proposing certain things which are just not true. So hopefully those initiatives don't get pushed through, and we're still continuing the fight.
Well, Chairman, thank you so much for being here, and please visit us again.
Thank you.
Arctic Indigenous peoples have an increased risk to exposure to harmful chemicals, according to new environmental science and pollution research. For Yupik communities on St. Lawrence Island in Alaska, these chemicals are affecting their traditional subsistence foods and lifestyles. We're with Vi Waihi, Environmental Health and Justice Program Director at Alaska Community Action on Toxics, who led this study and uncovered this issue. Can you give us an overview of this study and what it found?
Because of where we live, the Arctic has become a hemispheric sink for persistent organic pollutants that arrive here through air and ocean currents. And also we are having a very we're in a troubling times. We're in a climate crisis due to the warming of the planet and the oceans. My people continue to live off the land and ocean like we have for many, many generations. And it's affecting our food security. The marine mammals my people depend on for sustenance for many, many decades and centuries.
You're very involved in environmental justice. What inspires you to do this work?
Yeah, I've been doing this now for 20 years. And I was a stay-at-home mom for 6 years. I'm a mother of 4 sons who are now grown, and I'm now raising a grandson. And it's alarming to learn that everybody on the planet we are being exposed without our consent in our homes, workplaces, and environments, and communities like mine through our most sacred nakapik, our traditional foods.
How did this issue first come to be spotlighted?
A former health aide tried to get help for our people for 20 years, and nobody would listen to her and validate her concerns. And our executive director, Pam Miller, met Annie here in Anchorage at a women's conference. And that's basically how this community-based project began in 1997. And we have been funded from the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences to do our own community-based research because the burden of proof was put on us. And we now know that my people have 4 to 10 times higher PCBs than the average American in the lower 48.
This research highlights a unique risk for Arctic peoples. Can you talk about just how detrimental these chemicals can be?
Well, you know, these chemicals, as I mentioned, are manufactured, and only a handful are ever tested for their safety before they're put on the market. These are burdens we didn't create. We are some of the most highly contaminated population on the planet because of where we live in the Arctic due to POPs, but also through our traditional foods. And most people on the planet have no idea of what's happening here. So it's important that we participate and for meaningful change to ban these toxic chemicals.
As far as solutions go, what would you say is the path moving forward?
I have challenged myself to learn as much as I can about how we're being exposed and how these toxic chemicals harm our health and well-being. Not only do we do this community-based project, but we also offer education to not only our leadership in communities, but to youth and elders and other communities in our region and the Arctic that rely on subsistence foods, but also because of where we live. So we bring an Arctic Indigenous Peoples delegation to the Stockholm Convention in Geneva, Switzerland. It's the only UN legally binding treaty that bans toxic chemicals globally. And we make statements and interventions on the floor, and we are instrumental in helping to ban toxic chemicals globally, but also at the national level, state level, and local. And, you know, it's so important that everybody get involved because it affects all of us. It's alarming to learn that my grandson, who I'm raising, has a higher body burden of flame retardants in his developing body because he's on the floor and children put everything in their mouth. And that it can affect our children's ability to learn. How can we pass on our languages, our creation stories, our songs and dances, our traditions and cultures if our children can't learn? So it is so important that we learn as much as we can, because state and federal agencies who are supposed to look out for our health and well-being, though they know what's going on, do not make this aware or make it available to your average citizen. So it's going to take all of society to make meaningful change.
Bye. Thank you so much. Holly Cook Mccarro joins us today from Minnesota. She's from the Red Lake Nation and a partner with Spirit Rock Consulting. Hi, Holly. Welcome back.
Hi, Leah. It's good to see you.
So you're in Minnesota, as I mentioned, from the Red Lake Nation, where, of course, there is an Ojibwe woman who is the lieutenant governor and is running for re-election with the governor, of course. Tell us what the campaign updates you have.
Well, Peggy Flanagan is an Ojibwe woman from the White Earth Nation in northern Minnesota, and she's currently the highest elected Native American official in the United States. She is running for re-election with Governor Tim Walz, former member of Congress from Minnesota, and this is going to be a tough race, as we all know. Minnesota has really drifted purple over the last 10, 15 years or so. And I think it's actually in addition to having a Native American at the top of the ticket, we also, it's a bit of a bellwether, I think, for what election issues are going to be up. In terms of the Walz-Flanagan race specifically, I think most of America, most of Indian country has seen that no one has done more to strengthen the relationship between the tribes and the tribal nations of Minnesota and the Minnesota government. So they have done so much during the pandemic in terms of outreach. They have codified, it's called Executive Order 19-24, which is a consultation and a recognition of the government to government relationship. They've created a missing and murdered Indigenous women's office. They have really done so much outreach in building that relationship with the tribes of Minnesota. Really one of the things that I love the most was the scholarship assistance that they provided for tribal members in the state of Minnesota at the universities there. In regards to the race, it's, like I said, going to be tough. They've put together very strong fundraising numbers. They've got organizers spread throughout the state. They have, including Indian country and in tribal communities, they are, hiring field organizers as well. They are, and this is going to be an expensive race. They have, as of today, cash on hand, a huge cash advantage. They have $4.5 million to their opponent, Jensen, who's got $650,000 in the bank, cash on hand. That is a huge advantage. And this is going to be an expensive race. That is going to keep them on the air, in the news, and in the field for as long as they need. They are working very hard, not taking anything for granted. And as a fellow Anishinaabe from Minnesota, the race is, I'm watching the race very closely. I'm very excited and hopeful for that, to see that race be successful.
Can you tell us how you think other Native people in Minnesota are reacting in terms of if, Peggy Flanagan will absolutely 100% secure the Native vote in this election? I mean, I've spoke to sources in Minnesota who have said they've been overwhelmingly happy with what she's done, but also they don't agree with her stances on things like pipelines. But I'm wondering if you could sort of characterize, how in the bag the Native vote she has this election.
I think she's going to have to work for it. Those are legitimate concerns that have been raised, and that's what we should do. We should hold our elected officials feet to the fire on the issues that matter to us. And we are asking the hard questions. No one should ever take the Native vote for granted, whether you're Native or not. Folks need to be with us in respecting the government to government relationship where they have met that bar. The question on line 3, I think when you dig deep, there's both policy and there's corrective legislation that's needed as well to empower the governor and the people of the state of Minnesota to shut these things down when they can. So it is a divisive issue. I think it's put the Walz-Flanagan administration in a bind somewhat, but Lieutenant Governor Flanagan, I think it was the most notable split between she and the governor, and not an easy thing to do, but it was, I know, a bright line for her in terms of her position on that. So yes, let's ask the tough questions. Everyone should work for the vote.
Moving forward to Washington, D.C., Holly, talk about the congressional calendar and what, Congress members could potentially achieve before Election Day.
Yes, we have almost exactly 4 months until the midterm elections. And what tribal leaders and Indian country can keep an eye out for is really a very shortened calendar up until the middle of November when they return. So we are currently on the 4th of July recess. Congress will return. We've got a gun control bill under our belts. They've been moving appropriations bills just like clockwork out of the House. There are some big ticket items on the table. Folks still want to get Build Back Better. All of that put together. Not sure how much energy there is behind that, but were that to come together, there are significant dollars for Indian country in there. But we will see them come back for a couple of weeks at the end of July, go out for the traditional August recess. I think they will be back in no later than the first week of October. Then they are going to recess and allow everyone to go home and campaign for re-election. We will see them come back after the election. As of today, it looks like, we are going to see a change in the majority in the House. The Senate seems to have come back into play just a bit, and it was going to be a landslide towards the right, towards the Republican side. But things are, with the recent Supreme Court decisions, there seems to be some motivating of the base on both sides. So that's what the rest of the year is going to look like.
Well, Holly, thank you so much.
Thank you, Aaliyah.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For more news, visit ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives. I am Aaliyah Chavez.
Sometimes you got to take a stand just because you know you can. Oh, you got to run, you got to run.